Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are just about to get live with quarterfinal number 1 of Ascension number 3. This is the first playoff match we're going to have. Our bracket is as follows. TheBeaver99 will be taking on 3 Crow today. And later on today, after the series, Mystery Meat will take on the winner. Then tomorrow, we will kick things off pretty early in the afternoon with Mesk versus DF. And in the evening, we will have the winner of that face off against the Shambler. And then we will culminate the tournament at around midnight local time. And that will be obviously the grand finalists. So we'll get to that eventually. But we're basically going to decide one side of the bracket today. We'll see how that works out. So I will go ahead and make a lobby while we get our players in here. And that will allow me to more adequately grab our competitors and figure out what's happening there. So I guess I'll start in Repulsion for the sake of it. Now, since 3 Crow is in the YouTube chat, that does make my job a little bit easier. But I have to wait for Beaver to hop in here. And for 3 Crow to hop in here. And in different contexts. Beaver has to hop into the YouTube chat or whatever, and then 3 Crow has to hop into the lobby for the decision. We got 1 out of 2 of those. We do have... Oh, Beaver is here. Okay, so... basically, what we need right now is for both players to pick a number out of 100. Similar to how we do the groups. We do have the Shambler and Ben Taberski in the chat. Shout out, homies. Reasoning. We also have Fagudo. We have Beaver. Beaver selects 12 and 3 Crow selects 3. That means that okay, well, Beaver has won that pseudo coin toss. Beaver can now decide whether he wants to ban 2 maps or pick the starter map and ban 1 map. So either Beaver wins the coin toss, can pick between banning 2 maps or banning 1 picking starter. We'll see what he says. And then we'll actually get the pick ban underway. I actually don't mind doing this part live. As we do this more frequently, we'll get a little bit better at actually doing it. And I think that will help. All right, Beaver says he'll pick and ban 1. So, 3 Crow gets to ban 2 maps. Well, let's do it a little bit more stylized. Let's have 3 Crow ban 1 map, then Beaver will ban 1 map, and then 3 Crow will ban another map, and then the decider will be picked by Beaver. Or the starter, rather, will be picked by Beaver. Let's go with that format. So 3 Crow, ban 1 map. As a reminder, our map pool is, drum roll please, Boskevine, Death Spiral, Equilibrium, Infinite Velocity, Maim Street, Nemesis Station, Nitro Valley, and Repulsion. And I will go ahead and post that here. So I have placed that. So 3 Crow bans Nitro Valley. Beaver ban a map that is not named Nitro Valley. I will edit the available maps. Beaver bans Death Spiral. 3 Crow ban a map that is not Nitro Valley or Death Spiral. You can check CMBW events for the up-to-date list of maps if you need to. Boskevine is banned by 3 Crow. Beaver select map 1. I have a sneaking suspicion I know what he's going to select. There it is. Okay. Repulsion is going to be the map, the series starter. Remaining maps are Equilibrium, Infinite Velocity, Maim Street, and Nemesis Station. Let me update the pick ban image here. Ladies and gentlemen, competitors, do your digital handshake and leave the stream such that I can think of you as legitimate men. And we will just get underway in a moment here. Thank you for your cooperation and coordination. And Honk Nation. Especially thank you for the Honk Nation. We do have Alexander in the chat. Welcome, homie. All right, I have updated the pick ban. So, 3 Crow is now ready. Beaver is also ready. I will type GLHF, and we shall begin the playoffs officially. Ah, he absolutely got annihilated. Well, he really timed that nicely. Well, absolutely pranked. I'll wait for our contestants to select their raise correctly. All right. Ready? We had to get one in. We had to get one in. GLHF is considered by me, of course. 3 Crow versus the Beaver. Zerg versus Terran on Repulsion. We do have Beaver in the bottom. We have 3 Crow in the top. It's going to be Electric Orange Zerg against Neon Carrot Terran. And also 3 Crows instantaneously double saturating his gas. I don't know how much time 3 Crow had to prepare for the tournament. This is a work day for him. I don't know what the Beaver even does outside of playing CMBW, so maybe this was also a work day for him. But either way, I know that there was some test map shenanigans happening for the Beaver. I think he was maybe doing some unit tests, trying to figure out what he can manage there. And of course, not in a programming sense, before anybody thinks that that's what I mean. So this is the updated Repulsion. Not updated since the group stage, of course, just updated in the sense that it's different from the last Ascension. Scout timings are relatively similar between our contestants. And it looks like 3 Crow is indeed going to be going for a Zork's opener. Obviously, he has sufficient gas at this point, so he's a little bit behind on the minerals, and as a result, will be holding back on his worker production. It doesn't look like Beaver is going to go for a fast quarry. Instead, he will be grabbing a Fulcrum about at the same time as the Zorkis goes down, if I'm judging my money correctly. I mean, that's what it looks like. Was he? What's he up to? What's going on here? Is he going for a star pad first? If so, he's floating a lot of minerals in response. He's going to put a Fulcrum here. I don't know that 3 Crow will be bamboozled by this, but it's hard to tell. No, yeah, okay. 3 Crow isn't going to be catching this. This is really funny because you would think that would 100% be caught, but no, actually not quite. So the Zorkis will be the first structure of choice. And I have to imagine 3 Crow is going to go for the Lakizalisk. I mean, the Ovaleth is already out. So his build order is a little bit different than what we've seen the Shambler do. Oh, he's got the Trifecta. Try to surround that Mason. Obviously not going to work out, but still manages to ward it off, and only at the cost of a little bit of mining time. Now, at this stage, 3 Crow has to be a little bit cautious or concerned, because he didn't see anything on the way in. Where is he going to think that this guy's tech is? If he manages to station a worker here, you know, station his scout down here, or if it just, like, automatically starts to fall back or whatever, you know, if just generally he paths that way, he'll end up seeing the Vulture, at the very least. And unfortunately for him, he was not paying attention, because he was getting sassed back up here, and did manage to not lose a worker, although one of them is idle. But he obviously has lost his worker over here. Now, with the Lekizalisk coming, the Vultures are not a bad shout here. Also, funnily enough, due to his shenanigans, Beaver ended up losing access to this Mason. There is obviously an anchor here that can be garrisoned by the Vulture, so it's not the end of the world. And, of course, you want the lobster mines here. True to his namesake here, the Beaver really wants his lobsters. Of course, I call them lobotomy mines, but there's a growing push to call them lobsters. And I think, well, the Obelisk can see them. And right now, what's he going to do about that? So he's actually going to let it just pop, but it pops outside of the attack range, right? So at that stage, he's allowed it to occur. He does have the 2 Vultures. Oh, I see. There was nothing even in the anchor to begin with. How do you want to approach this? All right. He's actually going to pull the workers. I mean, this is pretty effective by 3Crow, even though it was super heavily telegraphed. Maybe the Mason actually didn't scout the Obelisk, but I think it must have, right? Because he laid the lobster mines. So he must have known that that was what was going to come. So this is a bit of a cheesy play, and it does feel like it should have been spotted. But what can he do, right? Now, he can go ahead and land on this to forcibly unburrow it, but it doesn't look like he wants to do that, or maybe he's not aware that that's a thing. The other thing, of course, he can do is just, like, lift another structure if he has one. And right now, it's actually kind of far away from being supremely effective. Oh, unfortunately, he doesn't even get a chance to reveal it, so... Well, he'll go ahead and do that here. Yeah, I think at this point, it's 100% going to be taken care of. So, at great cost, but actually, throughout all of that, while there are more Lekizalisks on the way, one of them in an Ovaleth, there's not that many workers here for 3Crow. He does have a circuit, so he will have one soon, which is going to prevent any harassment or run-bys. And at the same time, there's been no star pad. So if Beaver thinks that the cheese is ending, well, he's in for a very smelly time because yet another one has arrived. There's nothing in that anchor over there, so what's going to happen here? He's going to lose the Vulture. Oh, never mind. Somehow he managed to dodge the spines. Again, I'm not sure that he's aware, but you can just go ahead and land that. Unfortunately for him, there's another one at the front line. It has interrupted his mining. A lobster has gone ahead and slowed and attacked that Lekizalisk. And the Vulture can kill it. It may end up happening. He just needs one shot. Can he get one more shot off? Not quite. I'm not sure if he just couldn't fit there or if it was just pathing because of LOL Lard. But, yeah, there is finally a star pad happening. Now, again, like, this looks really bad, but I promise you, this is not as grim as it really is, like, would seem like. You know, 3Crow isn't the strongest player in the mid-game, and I mean, he's already floating a lot of money just based on this alone. So this could still go the other way, right? With the lobster mines giving vision, he's actually in a pretty good spot. Unfortunately, he placed them in an awkward position where the return path still did damage to it. Probably wasn't expecting that. And now he doesn't have enough gas to actively get... Maybe he didn't cancel this? Either way, he doesn't have enough gas to actively get the ant seal, so... That's pretty much over, I guess, now. And GG is going to be called. If he was able to stabilize at that point, if he had maybe gotten the ant seal a little bit faster, that would have been the opportunity for Beaver to... counter the cheese and at least stay alive. And it's a little bit unfortunate that it happened on Repulsion, because that is a very standard macro map. So now one of the maps where you can play very standard and you can actually punish players who go a little bit unorthodox is no longer within the pool. I'm currently getting Windows 10, so give me 1 second here as I update our scores on the overlay. And we await Map 2's selection by the Beaver. In case people are not familiar with the format, when you drop a map in a series, you pick the next one. Similar to how in the group stage, you select the next map as the challenger when you are allowed to rejoin and play some more. So a very fast opening game gives 3Crow the advantage. I'm sure that's not the last we'll be seeing, though. I wasn't really talking too heavily and too in-depth about the analysis level of, like, what are these players' relative levels. I would say that this is an even matchup. So for 3Crow to get on the board so quickly in the early stages of the game, maybe proves that, you know, at the very least, it's in his back pocket. There's certainly room for the Beaver to come back into this situation. Nemesis Station obviously is a map that has similar distances between the bases. So it wouldn't really surprise me if this map... I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if 3Crow goes again. The same exact strategy. He does really like his Lakizilisks. But I'm not 100% sure that it's going to work out in the same way now that Beaver's aware of it, right? Beaver is known to go for the Stockade into Starpad opener fairly frequently. And if that ends up happening, well, yeah, okay, his Vulture shenanigans don't end up working out too well. Okay, well, there still could be something that happens there. The Beaver will once again be on the bottom of the map, similar to map number 1. 3Crow, the Japanese Violet Zerg, is going to go ahead and represent Nippon Steel. Well, I should say Nippon enemies, because, of course, the Steel player is actually going to be the Turquoise Beaver. I'm still waiting for Beaver to roll a Terran match or a tournament match and actually be the color Beaver. That is a color. So he's only harvesting gas with 1 worker. That's fairly non-committal. He goes for a second one. Either way, I would imagine that's actually going to be a Fulcrum opener. You wouldn't be harvesting gas if you were going to go Stockade. And it looks like 3Crow wants to scout a little bit faster this time around. Still an opportunity for him to be bamboozled, but because he went for a very hyper-aggressive opener, the early military that came out of Beaver, and again, his Fulcrum was a little bit delayed for those shenanigans, the early military needed to be spent on defense. Again, another thing that Beaver could have done in that last matchup is actually land the anchors directly on top of the Lakizilisks, forcing them to unburrow. If he landed a different structure, like if his Fulcrum was in his main, and he actually went for that instantaneous, like, land the Fulcrum on the Kizilisk while the anchor is, staffed with 2 Vultures, suddenly it becomes a lot easier to handle that. Now, it will be a Zorkish Shroud once again, so 3Crow is not deviating from the tech structure, at least the opening tech path and build order. Will he be going for an Ovolith? Well, he likes to build it before, so maybe that will be the case, or maybe he's going to go for something a little bit more conventional, like the Gorgorcore Rush that we've seen time and time again. It's going to be a little bit before Beaver can respond to that, but he could go for a Goliath or simply a Watchdog once he scouts this out. All in the plan here, right? Like, Beaver needs to keep his worker alive, path it around the base a lot, see what's going on with the eggs. And it looks like 3Crow is going to be interested in a Gorgorcore because he's holding on to his money. He's actually, his early resource expenditure and gas, income or whatever, he's got more gas than he needs, right? And not as many minerals as what he needed. Wait for him to figure out what's happening. He's going to go ahead and do a cheeky burrow. Obviously, that can be blocked. It looks like for some reason Beaver wants to get rid of it before the Vulture comes out. And it will indeed be a Gorgorcore. So that's much more delayed, and I think Beaver will have an opportunity to stabilize here. He does kill the worker without really any issues, and an anchor is on the way, but there's nothing to staff it just yet. So once the Gorgorcore hatches, it's actually going to be sometime... Yeah, he pulls the workers to kill the Mason. It's bold, and he doesn't resaturate his workers very fast at all, so it's not very efficient. But it is something that, when you do that, shrouds the map in darkness. And if you go for a fast anchor thinking, oh, I need some place for my Vultures to be, I mean, that's pretty rough. At this stage, I think maybe the build order counter will be the death of Beaver, because he doesn't have anything that actually attacks air units. He can start to go for like a double Watchdog or something, and that can be more than enough to ward it off. And he is starting to put his Vulture over here, while that's not going to catch any incoming Gorgs. So he needs to be cognizant of the fact that that can very well be something that happens. And obviously these mines are not going to be useful against the air units whatsoever. So he's starting to get a Goliath. That takes about 30 seconds. And it'll be about 5 before the Gorgs show up here. So I want to say it'll be about 20 seconds of Gorgorcore menace before he can really do too much. If he really wants to start doing something, he can move some of his workers directly into the anchors. But he's obviously very late on the Watchdogs, and he doesn't even get a cancel off on that one while he's starting to lose a lot of workers. So this is very, very rough. But as soon as that Goliath pops out, he can just jump it directly into the anchor as he kites around. Now, this Watchdog should end up being canceled, but it's not probably going to. Yep. So that's another one down. One Gorgorcore is dead. These have paid for themselves in gold. Now, again, as long as you keep some of these Masons alive, which unfortunately for Beaver he's not, he can go for an eventual quarry into a fix, basically, such that he's not going to be too annihilated. Otherwise, this Vulture needed to get some good counter damage and ultimately only got 1 worker. But hey, the econ level of our players are relatively even. And Beaver should have maybe taken note of that, judging by how few workers were actually here. But unfortunately for him, there are 3 workers in production already, and that's 3, which means his worker advantage, or parity, I should say, is actually going to be left in the dust a little bit here. It's going to be 12 to 8 on the worker count. Now, the Goliath inside the anchor is going to be more than enough. There's actually a second one here. That's going to be pretty effective at dealing with this Gorgocore before it can do too much damage. Unfortunately, though, there are some wounded Masons, and they are hanging out in this area. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if 3 Crow decides to go for one of those, just as a pick-off, just to salt the wound, since one of them is so low. One of them is 1 hit down here in the bottom right. One of them is, 2 hits over here in the top left, harvesting gas. But at this point, the Gorgocore has sustained a lot of damage just by poking around. There is a Lekizalisk on the way. There is no Vulture, and the mines were not placed to guard the ramp. So, opportunity. Again, you can take the Watchdog and land it on top of the Lekizalisk to try to uproot it. And obviously, the Gorgocore is just providing cover here. Now, thankfully for Beaver, he actually doesn't get focused down whatsoever. He loses 1 Mason for that ordeal. Definitely could have been a lot worse. So, 3 Crow could have focused, fired, target fired, etc. And now that Lekizalisks are on the field and a scout is going to confirm additional ones, I think what Beaver can do here is just drop a star pad, maybe queue up some vultures, and it looks like he might even try to just go a little bit aggro with the Goliaths. He has a Cyclops in the anchor. It's not going to be supremely effective against a Gorgocore, but he does have a Watchdog in the backline, so he doesn't have to worry about that as much. And this is the joy of static defense versus some very early pressure. You can just decide, hey, I'm going to charge on forward and see what happens. Now, the Mason even catches one of these Lekizalisks a little bit to split them up, and the attack move here from the Goliaths is indeed going to do a lot of damage to the Lekizalisks. So he's just going to stand on here. Oh, he could have stood on there, but it looks like he second-guessed himself for a second there. He does want to, put the other one on there and see what he can do, but I think it's a little bit awkward here. He didn't hold position, and they're in a bit of a straight line here, so they could, yeah, there's the damage, and at that point, he actually loses both Goliaths. So, a little bit rough there, a little bit rough. Azorius the Left has been caught onto the Mason itself, and the Rescout's going to confirm no expansion. So, Beaver is still definitely in this game. Unfortunately for him, the Lekizalisk does survive, and there's a Kagrant drop being orchestrated. So this is the first time we're actually going to be seeing this in the tournament. Hydrock Den in particular to follow up. No expansion necessary, but he does have the money to do so if he wants to. He is floating a little bit here. And a second Lekizalisk made its way down here as well. So some damage being put onto it by the Cyclops. It's just going to be ignored for now. However, they're dangerously close to a lobotomy mine. It doesn't look like it's going to pop. But, oh, there it is. He figured it out. Well, thankfully, even though it stunned everything else, it still worked out okay. He didn't lose any units, which is pretty good. I mean, unless you count the mine itself. Now, this Obeleth is being revealed. So what does that Goliath want to do? I think now the problem is Beaver should know that it exists, but in the chaos, he might not have seen it. However, he is going to see the Kagra as it spreads. So it will instantaneously be a Larvosk. This is an amazing play. I really wish more players would do something like this. Obviously, on a map with such a small main, you can see it. Like, this Kagra is immediately visible. So it is a little bit awkward. It can be caught, and it probably will be. But it's just interesting. It's quite compelling here. The Kagra is spreading. I don't think that it's going to last too long here. It definitely shouldn't. You can just unload the Goliath and move on forward. Meanwhile, some tickling is occurring. Now he's going to go for the Zorius, see what he can do there, just to try to ward it off. He somehow hasn't noticed the Kagra in his base. Now, what is being morphed over here? A Droleth. So it's going to be proxy circuits, I suppose. Yeah, somehow Beaver has not noticed this in his base. He's going to get absolutely bamboozled. The base is on the way for an expansion. He's caught up in workers. If he can survive versus the, encroachment here, then he should be okay. But he's actually pathing his units away. This might end up being quite effective. Now, some of his units are wounded, right? That Cyclops in the front is about half HP. Some Goliath does have a chip damage, but that's more than enough to deal with the 3 Hydras that are on the way, and there is no static defense over by this natural base. So, first damage is going to be a little bit split, and indeed the first Cyclops and as well the second Cyclops do fall. This Vulture does have mines, so he doesn't necessarily want to lose it. Pretty good micro there. Meanwhile, he has found this base over here, and I think one of these Kagrants is not long for this world, but the circuit finishes in time. The drop is very clearly happening. He recalls the Goliaths. He needs to deal with this before it gets completely out of hand. He can lift the anchor and land it outside of the Kagran reach if he wants to stop these Kagrans from going down without the Circuit being able to retaliate. Looks like he's figured that out. He's going to go ahead and do that. He'll even bring the other one as this Kagran finishes. He should get there just in time to land before the Kagra spreads, and indeed he is successful in that. So he can have his little... this anti-cheese, and his Goliaths have gone back forward. He recognizes, hey, maybe he's got nothing at home. He's investing a lot of money into this. He's canceling units and stuff. Vulture makes it into the Circuit, or rather, to the anchor, rather, and this Circuit is also going to get focused down. Meanwhile, Vulture over here still hasn't died, 9 HP. Unfortunately for 3Crow, the default priority on that Hydra targeted down one of the Goliaths, so he's got to evacuate the Drolets, or at least he feels like it. Some Izzy's on the way from the work there, and there's nothing to guard the ramp specifically, so they can just walk right in here. They will be zoned back by the Circuit, but maybe they can focus something else down. He wants to just try to run by the static defense. That is going to be fatal for the Goliath. Oh, almost certainly, I thought, but doesn't end up happening. And so far, this has been held. A second Fulcrum going down, a Stockade here. The quarry finished, so he can continue pumping workers. And the Izira cores are going to clean up back at home, so a worker transfer can happen, despite the fact that one of the Izira cores does pop. So, Azorius and a Lekizalisk back at home. A Hydra back over here to try to hold these static defenses. I'm surprised we don't see a Lekizalisk. That would really help to push things forward, because there's still no detection and still no Starpad. Treasury on the way for an expansion, and a Starpad finally over here. And the anchor is going to go ahead and see if it can move any further. The answer is no. I'm interested in seeing how this game progresses, I'll tell you that much. Lekizalisk is being pathed forward. No, it's going to go straight into the Ovaleth. We'll see where the Ovaleth wants to go itself. Looks like he's just heading to the ramp and see if he can push in further. Bit of a shuffle going on here. The double Vulture in the anchor is going to stop the Drolets from being able to progress any further. And again, I'm really quite surprised we don't see any Lekizalisks. I'm also surprised that there's not Cyprians in this. This Zorius is going to go ahead and charge forward and scout. That's going to help the Ovaleth correct its path. And hey, Starpad is complete, so an Anseal can begin in production to deal with Lekizalisks. One of them is in the drop. It is going to be an Anseal, so that's going to be the first one. This Ovaleth was also just spotted at the very edge there. And another base being put down by 3Crow, or at least we would imagine. I'm glad he selects the lot of... All right, there's not much in these anchors, so they can, in fact, be burst down. Be careful what you wish for here. But there are some Masons coming in. Of course, the Izira cores are going to be good for dealing with some of that. And hey, he's kind of being lax there. He could have maybe focused that one down, but there was a little bit of a lax repair happening. And now I think with the Anseal arriving, it's probably not going to be too long for this world as a result. More Terran units ready to move out. Again, not very much defense over here. No Lekizalisks. The Ovaleth has one in it, but it's more of an offensive placement. And now that there's an Anseal out, I'm not so sure it's going to be the difference maker here. Azorius, 2 Zoriuses, 2 Izira cores. That's what he's cooking in that Larvosk. A Treasury moving all the way to the bottom right, not interested in taking his nap. The Izzies move out forward, forcing some mine deployments, but there's way more units here than 3Crow was anticipating. And again, no Lekizalisk. Some Skither cores are coming out. That'll bypass the Vultures, but there are Goliaths and Cyprians here. That's going to instantly result in one of them being popped, and now the worker line is in jeopardy. Just some Hydras in these eggs over here. Nothing really doing to try to prevent this force from being quite effective. Meanwhile, another commitment onto this anchor. I think the Anseal has already left the building, so in fact, the Ovaleth can even land and start contributing to the fight that way. It's going to be a little bit of a very hectic move here, where you might even see some base trade action as 3Crow desperately tries to rally the troops. The Rillarokors drawing fire from that Vulture in the anchor. On top of it, he's preserving the life of most of his units here. More Vultures coming out, or trying to. A stun happens. Okay, well, not really that big of a deal, but significant enough. And even though a Vulture is finished and some units are over here, nothing is in this anchor in the back. The worker line is starting to be jeopardized. Again, the circuits are over here, but back in the back line, while some Hydras are popping out. Okay, these Goliaths in jeopardy. They should be focused back. They should be brought backwards, and indeed they are. The Anseal's here to try to protect, but I think the micro is going to be a little bit missing. That Goliath is not long for the world, and now the Cyprians are starting to be pieced out as well. Again, no Lekizalisk. The one in the Ovileth totally forgotten about. Back at home for Beaver. His base is in shambles. He didn't garrison his anchor. This one never turned into a Hatcherosk. Finally will get corrected, and a Mason over here is doing its best to help repair this circuit as it dies. Repair it to death, that is. That will indeed be enough, it looks like. Down here, a lot of workers ready to start harvesting. Not really a whole lot here that can be done. The base is starting to lift off. It's total chaos. The lobster mines planted a lot earlier to try to counter an imaginary Lekizalisk drop that just never happened are going to be good enough. Okay, where does this leave us? There is a base in the top left. It could be scouted at any point. There's enough forces over here that, really for either player, they could wipe out their military easily. Will this be enough? This is a very tense situation for both of our players. Again, I think 3 Crow's forgotten he has this Lekizalisk. He can decide to move it somewhere to a defensive posture. Obviously, with the Ant Seal there, they can detect it. It's not going to be the end of the world. The other thing that, of course, he needs to do is protect this Hatcherosk before it pops, else there's going to be hell to pay. The Ministry still being alive means that Beaver can technically go up to 2 bases of production. Meanwhile, there are 0 workers at all for 3 Crow, and he can only afford 2 before some returns come in. Definitely in a better spot is Beaver, but if his military falls, it's going to be a little bit before he can realistically regain it. He saved all of his production, so there is that. And the Lekizalisk is even going to go ahead and chase them. There's nothing here. There's an anchor, but nothing staffing it. No watchdogs. The Masons over here could get, mutilated. And the Ant Seal charges past all of the units. They could hold at the ramp. One of the Vultures dies pretty much helplessly. A second one in pretty much the same spot. And look, a lot of these units are bruised. You have to wonder, that full HP Goliath is probably the most formidable unit he's got. Meanwhile, the Lekizalisk never made it out of the Ovileth here. Zorius on the way, just sort of moving around, guarding the ramp. 3 Crow is not in a good spot. Units are going to start to be produced out of these production facilities. Where's he going to go with this Lekizalisk? Is he just going to scout? Is he feigning that he can only scout and can do nothing else? Right? Without detection, you don't know what's in that Ovileth. Units can be produced. Another worker on the way. Abandoning the ramp. This might be enough with the Ant Seal to protect. Well, it was enough for one Aziracore to pop, and the Ant Seal also ends up getting smoked. At this stage, the Goliath is not going to be enough to do more than kill another Aziracore. And every loss hurts 3 Crow a lot more. Yes, he's got some larva production. Yes, he's got some defenses for that larva production. And as long as that Larvos colony holds, he will technically not be out of the game. But with, again, 2 base economy just about, this is like 1.5 base when you factor in the fact that there's very few workers. I think it's clear Beaver is in a much more commanding position. Nothing in the bank, 300 gas to speak of for 3 Crow, but that's not going to help him mine more minerals. He's playing defensively now, and I think he needed to win very decisively, unload that Lekizalisk, maybe force a consideration for Beaver to recall his more forward units. I think Beaver's got it. I think we're going to see a 1-1 scoreline here, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, even in these tournaments, we occasionally have sponsored sips. That's what I just underwent. So hey, if you want your name read out here, obviously, you know where to go. Link in the bottom right. The Huracan confirms no base over here. Of course, he's not going to tread over there. Kind of surprised this lobster mine never got destroyed, but not the end of the world. It just, again, shrouding the map in total darkness would be a little bit more, make Beaver a little bit more paranoid. Now, he is going to go ahead and send his Ovileth back across. It will be intercepted by the Goliaths, so he has to be careful because that is on a collision course with attack move. So he instantaneously is going to respond. Is he going to escape? One more shot, it's not going to happen. He doesn't even unload the Lekizalisk, and I think that's probably going to really set him behind. He's going for a Quasrock. He's going for a Kagrid, presumably for a Circuith, although it is positioned a little bit more like where a Larvosk might be placed. And again, he might be able to hold out, but look, Beaver is gunning for an anchor back at home to be feeling super safe. He's got more production. He's got 2 bases. He's getting the worker count, 33 workers to 8. It's very clear who's going to win this. If this were a replay, I'd be speeding it up. I think that pretty much tells you all you need to know. The engagement is not looking too hot. The Anseal obviously blocking a lot of those shots. Finally runs out of energy. But there are 3 Goliaths. There are 2 Achmeds that were just on hold pause instead of doing anything. And 1 more Achmed that was on the front line. He's getting some mileage out of the Rilla Rokors, but the Zorius is at around half HP. And this Iziracor, he just dies because he tries to path around the front line. So that's going to feel pretty bad. Starting to spend some of this gas on Naths. Not a bad move, but again, you know, while there's nothing in that anchor, there are some units back here. I don't think he's going to be able to do any counter damage. And I also don't think he's going to be able to do too much with Nathracors to deal with this assault force. The Anseal is recharged. Nothing going on down here in the bottom left. Just not enough money to do so. The Vultures are going to try to come around. Obviously, any economic damage is going to be absolutely woeful. Yeah, they've moved all the way to the left. I think he's figuring out that that's the play here. Vorvercors are hatching, but the Droleths are in danger. These are his kingdom. This is his future. And I think it's going to go up in flames in just a moment here. The Goliath absorbing so much damage, not just from the Nats, but from the Vorvs, from the Zoryus, from the Rillisks. The Rilla Rokors, excuse me. And okay, yeah, he might just barely be able to squeak out of here alive. The Hydralisk is 1 shot away, doesn't end up happening, doesn't end up falling, but there are more units streaming in, and this is pretty much all 3 Crow has. Going for another Kagrant. You're still at 8 workers, my man. And Achmed is watching over you. Achmed punishes the weak. Yeah, there's just more units. There's an Atlas finished and everything. At this point, it's pretty clear 3 Crow's days are numbered, and he's going to have to win in less, or sorry, he's going to have to win in more than 3 games. Unfortunate, though his namesake may be. Nothing doing with the tier 2 just yet, but I think maybe Beaver doesn't think he needs it. He can just hold position here and enjoy attacking the Quasrock with impunity. This turning into a Larvosk is kind of bad because if that were a Circuit, he would be able to attack the Goliath. Absolutely slapped by tentacles. SMH, needless deaths. Confirming that there's no other bases here. Indeed, 3 Crow's tournament hopes. Well, his map hopes here. He's obviously up 1-0 right now. For a time. For a time, but not for very long, right, boys? Once this Quasrock gets kaput by this 1 Goliath. Oh, he's going to go ahead and pull the trigger before that can happen. The Cyprians are on the front line, which is a little questionable given their crowd control. So yeah, this force might end up getting cleaned up after all. You still got to make it through the Goliath, which is a little bit questionable. I think he gave it a move command or something. I'm not quite sure how not quite sure how he managed that. The line was green instead of red. There is a blockage. There appears to be a problem. Okay, one of the Vultures did make it through. Oh, I think the Goliath is dead. Finally, the Goliath has been stopped before the Quasrock dies. He's taking advantage of the increased regen rate while burrowed. He's been doing that quite a bit here, 3 Crow, but Zerg is not a race you can realistically min-max in this deficit, right? If he was Terran, maybe I could believe that, but Beaver's got 2.6k. Like, at this stage, man, we are not talking much here. There's phalanxes out with the Palladium. There's room for transports. Units are being rallied across the whole map. The map has been scouted even. Beaver knows his opponent is on the ropes. Well, these Vultures are going to get engaged with, but this force is not going to be enough to mop them up. They're not wounded enough. And once the Phalanx starts shellacking him, I think he's going to know it's over. The GG is called. Beaver will go up to 1-1 to tie us. And we've got a series on our hands, boys. I'm sure he's going to like that I said 3 Crow, select map 3. But indeed I did. I'm not sure, Shambler. I think that game would have been over no matter what, just because of the double worker production queues that the Terran had, the ability to drop, you know, a quarry at the Ministry in the upper, like the mid-right, etc., etc. One of Equilibrium, Infinite Velocity, and Maim Street are going to be the next maps. I imagine it'll be Equilibrium because 3 Crow has shown an affinity for that, but instead it will be Infinite Velocity, looking to maybe cheese the man on his own map. Again, Beaver made this map. He was born in it, molded by it. He didn't see a Nidus Cesiant that was constructed conventionally until he was already a man. Jumping into Infinite Velocity, this map has been updated by the Beaver to provide us with revealers over the Nidus Cesiants and the future stations. There is actually a fourth one that this revealer does not reveal, so it's not really living up to its namesake there, but that's okay. That's something that can be updated later, and I'm sure Beaver will watch this back and catch this commentary piece. I saw some discussion. Fagudo was mentioning the transport UI. When I select it, it's going to be player colored, but when the player selects it, it will be green. So it's a little bit more obvious, particularly since it's not there at all when you don't select a transport. So even though for me, the color being dark was a little bit hard to read, perhaps, even with that being said, you still see text show up somewhere in a context where otherwise there was no text. So I'm not sure if that actually was totally forgotten. I think it was more that he forgot that he had the Ovalith to begin with in all the chaos. But, of course, we can interview him after the fact and ask him what was going on with that. Because that was a very tight game. It will be a Zorka's Shroud. Obviously, this is a map with 2 geysers in the main. Tech rushes are a thing. Sustained unit production from that powerhouse tier 1 element. Gorgorcores, Lakizilisks, Goliaths, you know, Ecclesiasts, etc. are a thing. I imagine this, you know, with interest in double Stargate play coming out from a lot of the players that are playing Protoss right now, particularly Shambler, is trying to pioneer that strategy. On this particular map, it's quite possible. The Maverick will stand guard versus the future stations, as well as the Cyprian being rallied over there. The map distance is such that it's really difficult to actually cross that for a conventional scout. So you usually use the Niduses to scout. And since people are cheesy bastards in this community, they're scouting with a cheese and an attack. Lakizilisk started. Is it any surprise? I don't think 3 Crow will open Hydrock in this whole series. Why would he? Why would he need to? He's actually started a second Lakizilisk here, so he's really going to go for the same thing that secured the victory, secured the dub in the past versus Benno. Beaver is a little bit of a different kind of man, though. Getting a little bit of a leg up on his opponent. I mean, Terran do that anyway because of feet. Oh, Lord. Yeah, that's a good spot. That's close enough, right? Well, anyway, the Nidus has been crossed. The burrow should commence as soon as he gets tickled. And Beaver is not responding to this, so he just lost everything instantaneously. Everything infinitely velocities. Quick burrow. Well, he lost Lakizilisk. Maybe if he hadn't led with the wounded one, he would have been okay. I think Ahmed is in a spot where he can at least help, but that Maverick did end up getting absolutely slapped, so... And that other Hurakan was positioned such that he didn't end up taking damage from the return spine, so not only is he still alive, and not only has Ahmed claimed victory, but that Hurakan is not very damaged. Lakizilisk will stand guard over the Nidus, instantaneously going to attack the Mason, so no scout is going to be possible. But do you need a scout when you see a total of 3 Lakizilisks so far? Are there more on the way? Of course there are. 3 Crow needs at least 3 Lakizilisks. Don't you understand? Ah, yes. The colors. It's just classic orange. I think these colors have been updated. 3 Crow, meanwhile, is Platinum. Not Platinum League. We don't have leagues. This isn't League. Or StarCraft 2 for that matter. This idle Mason is throwing me for a loop. There's also a couple over here in the main. Wonder what's going on with that. Meanwhile, with the stockade heavy move, Beaver has deviated from his strategy. Can't say the same thing about Three Crow's position here. He is going to go ahead and inch forward. No anchors have been constructed, no star pad in sight. And now, with the recommittal into Lychysilisks, things could get a little rough. This is almost like a siege line move, where you kind of deploy some and undeploy the others. However, Three Crow has been a little bit lax about that. And stepping through all the spines is not the good move here, but you can start to try to stock, you know, a couple anchors. Maybe you can tickle some of these Lychysilisks before they burrow, just to soften them up before the shots inevitably come, and they wrap around onto the Masons. You can start pulling these off and start garrisoning the anchor. Indeed, that does end up happening. But yeah, I don't think he did enough damage to the softening stage here. The move is to the bottom. Canceled that Mason just as it was about to live. Your training is not complete. Do not pass go. Do not collect 4 minerals. Not even 3 minerals, in fact. Meanwhile, Three Crow is going to the same spot on his side of the map, but for completely different reasons. And these Lychysilisks are relatively contained within the base. However, the Nidus is also still alive, so that's going to be pretty rough. These Masons should be pathed onto the expansion. They have the same number of workers. It's just that there's been such a massive amount of lost mining time. With the anchors over here, the stockades should be moving around to try to get into a position to, you know, do something. Train some units. 3 more Lychysilisks on the way to the front lines, not going through the Nidus. They need to come down here, apparently. Right? Makes sense if that's the pressure you want to keep. Zorius and another Lychysilusk, so he's really going quite heavily into military. A star pad is on the way. I wonder what Beaver is thinking. Like, at what point do you not just throw up your hands and say, fuck it, dude, I'm building a star pad after my stockade every damn time. He had some idea for a cheese of his own, clearly. He was trying to build anchors on the neutral Kagra. You can do that. If it's neutral, it's buildable, or allied, it's buildable. Only if it's enemy is the Kagra unbuildable. And 3 Lychysilisks are going to come in here and really ruin his day. Where can he go? The star pad's not even done. It might not even finish. He pivots off to the right. Some of them go to the left. The Cyprians are coming down. But these are full HP Lychysilisks, man. And they do not mind hunting you down. At this stage, the star pad needs to evacuate so that it can build an Antseal in a safe spot. But even then, like, there's an expansion here. Three Crow has decent larva production. This map has gone away from Beaver. His lack of adaptation against the Lychysilusk menace has proven quite debilitating. All of his workers are huddled up for warmth off to the wilderness there, the cold depths of space, and the Lychysilusks are just going to happily sit over here. Maybe, accidentally, he's going to discover that he can land on the Lychysilusks to forcibly unburrow them. It also forces the structure off, but, you know, apparently. I didn't know that was a thing. It might also have been he queued the movement. But hey, now that he knows that that's a thing, maybe you could do that. It's too late, but maybe he can learn for the next time. Oh, dear. Now the Zorius is taking so many shots. Oh, the GG is called. And Lychysilusk served Three Crow well as he gets 1 map point away from going on to face Mist. I think we might see Equilibrium selected here to set us up for a Maim Street decider, if the Beaver is able to hold on. But you never know. He might decide, fuck it, man, I'm going to cheese with the best of them and pick Maim Street. We shall see. It does make me feel... I'm not so sure about this one. I feel like this could have been a much more competitive series in terms of the games that Three Crow won if Beaver had just held off a little bit, you know, if the trades were a little bit more even. Maim Street is, in fact, our next mission, our next scenario, our next map. And it has been hosted. Beaver now down, facing elimination from the tournament. His first playoffs qualification. Is it really going to be spoiled in the first stage by a dirty Lekizalisk rusher? Recro intends to say yes to that. And it has served him quite well so far. All right, well, showing off ready in style, an acrostic poem. R is for... Never mind. We're just going to jump straight on in to our next match. It's Maim Street, a meme map by DF that ends up being quite entertaining many times. 3Crow on the left. He's bronze. Well, he was platinum last time. I don't know what the downgrade's all about. And the Dark Spring Green Terrans are controlled by TheBeaver99. He's got 99 problems, I'll tell you what, and Lekizalisk's R1. There's a reference for you non-boomers out there. I mean, you boomers out there. I meant to say non-zoomers, but I said boomers instead. Don't you hate when you boom when you meant to zoom, and vice versa? It's going to be a Zork's opener again. It's pretty much telegraphed just by virtue of this ridge being harvested. Technically, he could go for a Hydrock here, but I really don't think he's going to. Like, why break the habit of a lifetime, man? You've just about got enough resources for it. One more return from all of your units, and you'll be good to go. Zork is on the way. Meanwhile, the stockade is more than halfway done. At this point, I would like to see Beaver start saturating his gas, at least the geyser, going up to a star pad, followed by a quarry, followed by an ant seal. Just get that economic advantage, be safe with your stockades, scout to confirm that it is indeed going to be a Zork's opener again. And even if it's not, hey, you can use a Wraith instead of an ant seal for your first unit out of the star pad and get perpetual vision. Some more sponsored sips here, brought to you by Alexander. I say that because he's in the chat and also a supporter. If you two are in the chat and also a supporter, make yourselves known. Actually, I saw Luciferius in there too, so let me take another sponsored sip. Sponsored by Luciferius. A Maverick has stimmed in an attempt to destroy this Droleth. Meanwhile, the Lekizalisk has been started. Mason has confirmed sighting. He's also damaged? I'm not sure what exactly happened there. I wasn't paying attention. I was too busy sponsored sipping. But I do think that there will be a star pad, right? There's no Cyprians being trained here. It's just going to be Mavericks. Makes total sense if you have an Ant Seal and an Anchor. He should confirm sighting of the Lekizalisk and the Ovaleth, in fact. So I do think that the star pad is going to be a little bit too late. He's queued so many workers. He could have built something with that. It's going to be an anchor. He needs something that can deal with the actual threat of the burrowed Lekizalisk. It did burrow just to kill this, so he bought himself some time. I think the anchor will finish as a result. But again, like, it's not enough to garrison an anchor, right? You need detection, or you need some way to force it to unburrow. And there's just no other structures that you can lift off, right? At best, you could do the stockade or the anchor itself. Maybe even try to land on the spot. Oh, okay. The one thing that he's got going for him is that Kian 3Crow is taking a very circuitous route to the end destination. Another anchor being put together. Still no star pad for detection. It feels like Beaver is not really well equipped to handle this threat. The Lekizalisk has been spotted, and it has even burrowed. What's he going to do about this? This is round 3 of it really significantly impacting his economy. You might even say round 4, counting the Nemesis station match. He does go ahead and garrison it. A full HP Mason could occupy it and reveal it for a good time. And there you go, the Lekizalisk has been shut down. It did get 3 worker kills, and it obviously occupied the mining quite heavily. It's only Mavericks here, but some nice decollision there. Totally unintentional from, I think, both players, but that definitely puts a lot of peppering down on the Zorius. And he could just borrow it and start to regain that health, of course, but significant, I think. Quite significant. A star pad being put down all the way over there. Over yonder. That could be significant as well. 2 Lekizalisks. Only one can fit in an Ovaleth, so what else might he do? The Rillarokor just moving around for scouting. The Zorius has starting to accept the presence of Mavericks. Oh my god! Absolutely decollided. Well, getting some chip damage on these Mavericks isn't actually the worst thing in the world. Again, you can borrow the Zorius. Another one is on the way, just to add insult to injury. He could catch this one. Not when it's stimmed, that's for sure. Oh, almost. Start pad has completed. And a couple of more Masons are on their way over here. I'm not sure if the start pad's going to get lifted off and he's going to drop a treasury or what. What's going on there? All right, the unload has occurred, and Ahmed is trained. He doesn't seem too concerned about the potential for Lakizilisks to move out against him. Oh, these units are borrowed, so that's going to be a little bit awkward. Oh, what's going on here? Well, absolutely slapped is what's going on here. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It's going to be a triple star pad hidden off into the expansion site. He's going to go mass Wraith and just bamboozle 3 Crow entirely. Not a bad choice. If he can hold out against the Lakizilisk moves. He's not going to see them is the problem. He does have them fully garrisoned. And Ahmed's are on the way, which will be somewhat durable to deal with the Lakizilisk moves. These anchors aren't positioned in a great spot to hit, have both of them firing on the same Lakizilisk. But, oh, and Ahmed, it finished. It just now finished. One of them is so low, it just needs to be able to move over there. He's actually going to move it a little bit closer. I'm not sure what the significance of that is. Well, it's being focused down in an awkward way. He could just land the stockade on them and force them to unburrow. I don't know what's up with that. One of them is, he's now got both, like 2 of them to be very low. Meanwhile, some Mavericks are tickling over here. An Ahmed did die. One of the anchors is dead. Surely he's not going to lose just when he needed some assistance most. Does he have an Anseal in production? Okay, he does have an Anseal in production. Is it going to be too late, or what are we going to see here? The burrow regeneration rate is too high. Okay, again, the Mass Wraith play could work. That has not yet been discovered. More Kagrants are being put together. Okay, now it has been discovered. It has been revealed. A lot of Masons are getting absolutely shellacked. We're now down to 6 workers. Make it 5 as soon as that one gets owned on the way out. Well, never mind. It's okay. And an Anseal is out. We'll be able to reveal the presence of these Lakizilisks, but these are turning into Spraiths already. I'm not quite sure what else can be done here. Maybe the Lakizilisks can get hunted down by the Wraiths, and then he can successfully return to mining. Obviously, he needs to do that stat. He's actually going to move the Wraiths away. He'll just barely see them. He should hear the sound of the Wraiths and at least see them chasing. The Anseal is not coming with them, though. The Anseal has gone a different direction. He's not exactly sure what's happening. Oh, he sees them. He has revealed that there are indeed more Lakizilisks on the way. But he has no anchors. They all died. He has 1 Maverick left. There's a Wraith idling over here. He needs to bring these air units back, and he needs to be able to do it such that those Lakizilisks won't end his career. Now, he is rotating the Lakizilisks around. He's looking for an expansion. There's not really an expansion here, but the triple star pad does exist. He knows that another base must exist because he's just been moving around looking for where the star pad might be. Little does he know there's 3 of them and no treasury, so that's going to be quite the discovery. A whole boatload of Nathricors are about to descend, and there's no anchors, there's no splash damage. That's going to be one hell of a reveal. Again, like, actually, despite all of that, there's only a 3-worker difference. It is possible that he comes out alive here. It's just there's a lot of Naths, and they are going to be picking apart these star pads, so there is going to be an attempt to ward them off, particularly since they are just tasked onto them. But look at that. The Anseal just gets absolutely melted as far as its shield goes, and all the Wraiths are stacked! He's not moving them! He's not defending them! Oh, at least they're bugged. The GG is still called because the Lakizilisks charged forward, and 3 Crow is going to claim the series 3-1. Well, goodness gracious, ladies and gentlemen, I was not expecting the series to go that way. I still think, man, if the stockade had landed on top of the Lakizilisks, so many things could have been different about that engagement, but Beaver maybe just isn't as aware of that as he might have thought. Wow. I'm quite surprised at the output of that match. But you know what? We had a banger. The Nemesis Station match was quite funny. Obviously, 3Crow hung out a little bit too long for, for what is sensible, but he probably didn't see how far behind he really was. An interesting sequence. An interesting sequence. I see 3Crow in the chat. GG's, and GG's to the Beaver as well if he's watching, either live or after the fact. 3Crow, I have to ask you, man. In that Nemesis Station match, a question burning into my soul. Did you know that the Lekizalisk was in that Ovaleth above the base the entire time the trades were happening? Because you could have unloaded that during the siege of Beaver's base and maybe killed some more workers. You could have unloaded that when you were scouting with the Ovaleth to begin with in that bottom right-hand location. What was going through your head, man? Did you just forget about it? What was happening there? Gotcha. Well, the transport UI could stand to be improved, and since we were able to do it for the wireframes and all that, I feel like maybe it's actually quite feasible to replace that. Maybe DF will have some ideas for that. But yeah, unfortunate stuff. Anyway, 3-1. You ended up taking it pretty comfortably. I'm sure you're going to be going up against a tougher opponent once you head over to Mystery Meets Maim Street or whatever. He's probably going to ban Maim Street and Infinite Velocity or what have you. But, there's going to be some interesting matches there. I look forward to seeing you there. And that will be obviously a separate stream. Could happen in an hour. Could happen a little bit sooner. We'll see what the players decide. Until then, stay tuned. Keep your eyes peeled and appointed on the Discord server. And we'll give you an update as to when we're going live there, of course. Until then, GG's. And, semifinal time.